You know, um, it is a really strange feeling when you realize you might just be sitting in the passenger seat of your own life.
Oh, absolutely. It happens to all of us.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you wake up and you tell yourself, okay, today's the day. I am going to focus. I am going to eat healthy. I am going to finally finish that massive project.
Yeah, you have the whole plan laid out.
Exactly. You feel like you have your hands firmly on the steering wheel, but then it is almost like there is this phantom driver sitting right next to you, and the car just veers off.
Mhm.
You find yourself doom scrolling on your phone for an hour, you skip the gym, and you completely lose track of your own goals. So you really have to ask yourself if you are supposedly the one driving who actually took the wheel.
It is the ultimate modern frustration, I think. We have the intention, we map out the logistics, but the execution just constantly slips right through our fingers.
Right.
And that is because we are operating under a fundamental misunderstanding of what is actually controlling our actions.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the core premise of what we are exploring in our deep dive today is the direct, sort of mechanical relationship between daily discipline, the actual state of your mind, and achieving what we might call higher consciousness or, profound success.
Yeah.
And we are pulling our insights today from the teachings of Osman. He is an energy healer, an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, and widely known as the blind Muslim yogi. And he runs a platform over at yogawellness786.com.
And just to set the right framework here right out of the gate, Osman is really quick to point out that while we are diving into ancient yoga sciences and natural therapies today, this is a wellness framework.
Right, of course.
It is not a substitute for your doctor. If you are dealing with a severe medical condition, you need to seek out a qualified medical professional.
Definitely.
But for tackling mental friction and psychological stagnation, this framework is just deeply illuminating.
Yeah, I like to think of it as an operating system upgrade, not a hospital visit. But let's get into the foundational problem Osman identifies,
Yeah.
because he argues that a lack of discipline isn't just you being a little lazy or disorganized.
Right. It is much bigger than that.
Yeah, he says it is a glaring warning sign that you do not have control of your own mind. And if you lack that control, your mind acts as a literal stumbling block.
Mhm.
It makes it functionally impossible to evolve or transcend to any higher levels of awareness.
Right, and to understand why it is a stumbling block, we really have to look at what Osman calls mistaken identity.
Mistaken identity.
Yeah, so he argues that at birth, when your awareness first comes online, you basically only have two reference points, your physical body and your mind.
Okay, that makes sense.
So through natural ignorance, we just default to fusing our identity with those two systems. We go around saying, I am my physical form or I am my thoughts.
Well, I have to push back on that immediately, though,
Yeah.
because scientifically speaking, the mind is generally understood as just the byproduct of brain activity, right? Like
Mm.
our thoughts are just neurochemical reactions.
Okay.
So how does Osman justify separating you from your mind so cleanly without this just sounding like a theoretical sci-fi concept?
No, it is a completely fair challenge. And Osman justifies this separation by looking at extreme physiological states where those systems actually disconnect,
Okay.
which proves that the underlying consciousness, the real you, remains even when the mind or the body goes offline.
Oh, interesting. So give me an example of that.
Well, take the body first. When you are put under heavy anesthesia for a surgery, your body is entirely shut down. It doesn't react. It feels absolutely nothing.
Right. You were totally out.
Exactly. The physical system is completely muted. But are you dead?
Well, no.
Right? Has your consciousness actually ceased to exist? No. The moment the chemicals wear off, you are still there.
Okay, yeah. The body part makes sense. The consciousness is paused or, disconnected from the sensory input, but the entity remains. But the mind is trickier, I think. How do you disconnect from your own mind?
So look at cases of really severe, unbearable trauma or extreme psychological distress. In those really intense moments, the mind can essentially shut off to protect the organism.
Like it just short circuits.
Sort of, yeah. It might retreat completely into a state of dissociation or paranoia or even a dream state, just totally losing its grip on reality.
Wow.
The mind is no longer functioning in its natural aware state. Its processing is fundamentally broken in that moment, yet the underlying you, that core awareness experiencing that break, is still alive and present.
Oh, I see. So you are the consciousness,
Yeah.
and the mind and the body are essentially just the hardware and software you were using to, interface with the
Yeah.
world, like a VR headset.
Yes, that is a great analogy. And what's fascinating here is how Osmond frames this relationship. He insists that you must view the mind as an independent entity.
An independent entity.
Yes, it belongs to you, certainly, but it's not you. It is a highly complex tool.
Right.
The problem is, because of that mistaken identity we developed in childhood, we have basically let the tool take over the workshop.
Yeah, we let the software write its own code. But if the mind is an independent entity, that raises a huge practical issue for me.
What is that?
Well, how in the world do I get it to listen to me? Because standard discipline, the hustle culture stuff we see everywhere online, is all about forcing it.
Oh, absolutely.
Gritting your teeth, setting an alarm for 4 a.m., jumping into a freezing ice bath, and just trying to wrestle your brain into submission. We try to establish dominance over it.
Which is precisely what Osmond says guarantees failure.
Wait, really? Guarantees failure?
Yes, you simply cannot control the mind by force. I mean, think about the neurology of what happens when you aggressively try to dominate yourself like that.
You are stressing yourself out.
Exactly. You are spiking your cortisol, you are triggering a massive stress response, and you are creating intense internal friction.
Wow, okay.
The mind evaluates that practice, realizes it feels terrible and erratic, and it naturally rebels. But more importantly, Osmond says, the mind actually loses respect for you.
The mind loses respect for you. I am having a hard time wrapping my head around that phrasing. How does a mind respect anything?
Well, if we treat it as an independent entity, its primary goal is optimization and survival. Right.
Right.
So if you, the underlying consciousness, are giving it commands that cause distress, burnout, and just unnecessary suffering without any clear immediate benefit, why should it submit to your leadership?
Huh.
Osmond argues that the mind only submits when it realizes a practice is inherently intelligent, beneficial, and soothing. It has to see a positive return on investment.
So we basically have to prove to our own minds that we are a competent leader.
Exactly.
We have to show that following our directions actually lowers its stress level.
Yes, you nailed it. And Osmond points to ethical practices as the first real mechanical tool for this.
Ethical practices.
Yeah, he highlights habits like forgiveness and gratitude. Now, people usually frame these as moral imperatives, right? Like just being a good person.
Right, sure.
But Osmond is treating them as mechanical upgrades for the mind.
Okay, how does forgiveness function as a mechanical upgrade? That sounds so abstract.
Well, think about when you hold on to resentment or anger. Your mind is caught in this loop of high alert processing.
Whoa, yeah. You can't stop thinking about it.
Exactly. It is burning massive amounts of metabolic energy just maintaining that grudge. It keeps your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response, partially engaged all the time.
Wow.
But when you practice genuine forgiveness, you are actually sending a powerful signal of safety to the brain. You lower the cognitive load.
Okay, I see.
The mind physically feels the relief of that serene calm. It experiences harmony, and it recognizes that your directive to forgive was highly intelligent.
Oh, that reframes it entirely. It is like closing 50 background tabs on your browser that were just draining the battery.
Yes.
The operating system finally gets to cool down.
That is exactly the mechanism.
Yeah.
And Osmond pairs those ethical practices with regular discipline in yoga and meditation. And this is where we start to see the transition in actual brainwave states.
Okay, tell me about that.
So the undisciplined mind is generally stuck in a beta state. It is fast-paced, chaotic, highly reactive to external stimuli. It is just constantly scanning for the next dopamine hit or the next threat.
Which perfectly describes the phantom driver doom scrolling on the phone we talked about earlier. It is a purely reactive state.
Exactly. But through regular, intelligent discipline, the brain naturally evolves into an alpha state.
Okay.
And this state is characterized by calm, intense focus, mindfulness, and surprisingly much higher levels of sustained energy.
Really? More energy.
Yeah, because you aren't burning it all on anxiety. And when the mind experiences that alpha state, when it actually feels the deep contentment that comes from those practices, it stops fighting you.
Oh, wow.
It looks at the habits you have instituted and actively submits to your control because you have basically proven that your leadership brings about a much better quality of existence.
That sounds incredible in theory, but let's talk application here. Because if someone listening buys into this, the natural urge is to say, great, I want an alpha state mind. I'm going to sit down and force myself to meditate for 2 hours right now.
Oh, big mistake.
Right, because we just established that brute force triggers rebellion. So how do we actually initiate this without the mind throwing up all its defenses?
So Osmond solves this with a concept he calls gentle development.
Gentle development.
Yes, you don't impose a rigid, punishing routine on yourself. You allow the mind to habituate gently. You start incredibly small. I'm talking just 2 to 5 minutes a day.
Wow, really?
Yeah, in fact, Osmond even offers a free 5-minute program on his website specifically for this exact purpose.
Well, I have to be honest, 2 minutes seems laughably small. I mean, if the goal is to forge the mind into this highly focused tool, how does 2 minutes actually move the needle at all?
Because it completely bypasses the mind's threat detection system.
Oh,
Think about it. If you try to sit still for an hour out of nowhere, your mind's amygdala essentially panics. It sees this massive deviation from your normal routine as a threat, and it just generates immense resistance.
right. You get itchy, you get bored, you want to check your phone.
Exactly. But 2 minutes. The mind doesn't even bother mounting a defense against 2 minutes.
Oh, that makes sense.
You slip right past the resistance, and over time, the consistency of that 2 minutes physically rewires the neural pathways.
Wow.
And as the mind naturally accepts it and feels the subtle benefit of it, you slowly dial it up based on your actual life circumstances, your financial situation, your career demands. It must be sustainable. It cannot be an abrasive shock to your system.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because Osman doesn't just stop at internal thoughts in meditation, does he?
No, he doesn't.
He makes a hard pivot into the physical world around us. He argues that your external physical environment actually dictates whether your mind will ever fully submit to you.
This is a critical component that, honestly, so many mindfulness frameworks just completely ignore.
Yeah.
Osmond states that an unorganized, haphazard environment literally destroys systematic thought. A clean, organized space is absolutely mandatory to encourage mental calm and a state of flow.
This makes perfect sense if we use a modern analogy.
Yeah.
Think of your mind as like a machine learning algorithm.
Okay.
If you feed that algorithm noisy, chaotic, unstructured data, like a messy room, piles of laundry, erratic schedules, it is going to output unpredictable, chaotic behavior.
Yeah.
It spends all its processing power just trying to interpret the visual noise around you.
Yeah.
You cannot expect a restful, highly optimized output when the input environment is inherently destructive.
That is spot on. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, you start to see how this systematic approach has to bleed into every single aspect of your day.
Right.
It isn't just about sitting quietly for 5 minutes. It is about engineering an environment of absolute predictability.
Okay, how so?
Well, Osmond suggests waking up and immediately establishing a clear plan. You ask yourself, what is my specific task for today?
Just laying it all out.
Yeah. And then before you sleep, you systematically review what you executed and you plan for tomorrow.
So you're basically systematically removing all the friction.
Mm-hmm.
The clean room, the morning plan, the tiny, gentle development of meditation, the practice of gratitude.
Exactly.
It is an entire ecosystem. You are proving to this independent entity that you are a highly capable architect of its reality.
And when you build that ecosystem, the resistance just vanishes. The mind no longer fights your intentions, it actually accelerates them.
So what does this all mean? We clean our rooms, we plan our days, we gently coax our minds out of that reactive beta state and into this calm alpha state. What is the ultimate payoff for you, the listener, who is trying to navigate a highly demanding modern life?
Well, Osmond uses some very deliberate, pretty intense language to describe the payoff here. He says that when the mind is fully under your control through this kind of systematic discipline, it transforms into a formidable weapon.
A formidable weapon.
A massive weapon, he calls it. It shifts from being the phantom driver that crashes your car to being the ultimate unstoppable engine behind your success.
A formidable weapon. That is really striking phrasing because a weapon isn't passive at all.
No, it is not.
It cuts through resistance.
Yeah.
When your mind is fully aligned with your consciousness, you aren't expending energy fighting your own urges anymore.
Exactly.
You simply point the mind at a target, and it executes the task.
Uh,
But I do want to clarify what Osman actually means by success here. Because forming a formidable weapon for success can sound a little bit like that ruthless corporate hustle culture we talked about.
Oh, it is the exact opposite of that narrow hustle culture definition. Osmond defines success very broadly and holistically.
Okay.
Yes, a disciplined mind is required for fulfilling baseline survival needs. Securing decent accommodation, earning a stable income, you obviously need executive function for that.
Right, the basics.
But true success includes optimal health, genuine peace of mind, and cultivating deep functional relationships. You simply cannot sustain a healthy relationship if your mind is stuck in a reactive, agitated beta state.
So it is about absolute functionality across all domains of life.
Exactly. But there is one final, crucial layer to his definition of success.
Oh, yeah.
Osmond states that your daily discipline must ultimately result in contributing something beneficial to society.
Oh, wow.
It doesn't matter how small or seemingly insignificant that contribution is to others. A truly successful alpha state mind naturally seeks to organize and improve the world around it because it recognizes its connection to the whole.
That adds such a profound sense of purpose to all this. We
Yeah.
aren't just disciplining our minds to hoard wealth or lower our own blood pressure.
Right.
We are sharpening this formidable weapon so we can actually be of use to our families and our communities.
And Osmond's conclusion on this is incredibly stark.
Yeah.
He emphasizes that without this level of systemic discipline, holistic success across all these areas is so rare that the statistical probability is negligible.
Negligible.
You might as well call it zero. Without discipline, the mind will eventually fracture under the pressure of modern life. Success isn't just difficult without it, Osmond argues, it is essentially impossible.
That is a pretty heavy reality check.
Yeah, it is.
A chaotic mind simply cannot string together the long-term, multi-step execution required to build a meaningful life.
But, it's also deeply empowering because the roadmap he provides doesn't require you to be a monk living in a cave.
No, not at all. It just requires you to be observant and gentle.
Mhm.
It is highly accessible to absolutely anyone willing to let go of their mistaken identity and just begin the actual work.
Well, let's do a quick recap of this journey we have taken today. We started by dismantling a core illusion, realizing you are not your mind and you are not your body.
You are the underlying consciousness operating them. We explored how the mind functions as an independent entity, one that naturally rebels against brute force, but willingly submits to intelligent, soothing practices.
Exactly.
By starting with gentle development, just 2 to 5 minutes of practices like meditation and gratitude, and by organizing the physical chaos of your environment, you lower your cognitive load.
Mm-hmm.
You systematically shift your brain from a reactive beta state to a highly coherent alpha state. And in doing so, you forge your mind into a formidable weapon capable of achieving holistic success and truly contributing to the world.
It just fundamentally rewrites how we should approach self-improvement. It is all about negotiation and environment, not punishment.
Absolutely. And if you are listening to this and want to explore how these ancient sciences integrate into your daily demands, I highly recommend checking out Osmond's resources at yogawellness786.com.
Yeah, definitely look into that free 5-minute program to start slipping past your mind's defenses today.
This raises an important question, though, and it is something you should seriously evaluate as you move through the rest of your day.
Let's hear it.
If your mind truly operates as an independent entity, one that evaluates your choices and only submits to leaders it respects, take a hard, objective look at your daily habits right now,
Oh, that is a great point.
based on how you treat your time, how you manage your physical environment, and how you handle emotional friction. What is your mind's opinion of you?
Wow.
Are you currently a leader that your own mind actually wants to follow? Because ultimately, you have to decide who is driving. Are you going to let the phantom driver keep steering you off course? Or are you going to gently, systematically take the wheel back?
The discipline is entirely up to you.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.